Hello, I'm Anna Raimondi, coming to you from the Angel Cooperative in Ridgefield, Connecticut. Welcome to this episode of Talking to the Dead in Suburbia. I'm so happy to welcome my guest today, Mica DeSantis, who totally fascinates me. Mica is a conception catalyst, and she's gifted with a unique ability to be a baby soul whisperer, which, to be honest, I have never met anybody who do what you do, and I've met a lot of people. So to me, this is just great, especially in a world where so many people are struggling with trying to conceive. Mica works with the physical touch, energy healing, and intuition, often enabling a woman to conceive after only one session. And the percentage of people that you have helped is astronomically high. You know, it's interesting that that you just do this by word of mouth, and people find you who have unexplained infertility, and that you're able to help them. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great what you're doing. How did you get into this? Like, how did this happen? How did you know that you could do this?
I have no idea. It just came one day. It started with a friend of my sister's, actually, who came over to my house, and we were talking, and she was telling me how she was struggling to conceive, and she was trying for about a year, and she had been to every kind of doctor, and there was no medical reason for her not getting pregnant. So I don't know why I said it, but I said, I can help you. But you'll have to have sex tonight, and I don't know if it was a party at my house. I said, I don't know if you are going to get home and want to deal with all this. And she said, oh, well, just do it here. Deal with this, right? It's like, this is a job. So she said, no. She's like, we'll do it here. I was like, okay. But anyway, I don't know why I did it, but I know it's maybe too much detail. But I just had her close her eyes, and I touched her on her third eye. At the time, I didn't even know what a third eye was. So, but she closed her eyes. I touched her, and I instantly saw a vision of a baby boy's face come in, and then that was it. And then they went off, and they did their thing. And about 2 weeks later, my sister reached out to me and said, guess who's pregnant? And she got pregnant that night, and then it just became kind of like almost like a joke. Like my other sister said, she had been trying for a while. She said, do to me what you did to her. So I did it again, and then a lot of friends and family would just do it kind of for fun. I didn't know what was happening, so it was just more
That's, I think, how it often happens in this spiritual world. It comes through kind of from left field, and then you say, oh my God, I've gained my confidence in this, and so I can do this with other people. And you talk about empowered conception. What does that mean?
So that came about after. So I was in a corporate job at the time, and I wound up getting sick. So I had to leave that job. And then it gave me more time to kind of delve into more of this realm. So I started to learn more about energy and energy healing and things like that. And what I found was that it's the same healing when you're connecting and trying to conceive. It's the same kind of process as trying to conceive a baby or conceive anything. So I call it the ARC process, and it's acknowledge, release, and connect. And the idea is when I'm working with women who are struggling to conceive, I'm shifting them from this struggle or this perceived, issue they're having, and kind of bringing the power back to them. And I'm doing that by having them acknowledge exactly what's going on. And that is, that's from stuff that's happening right now, but it's also past life stuff. It's ancestral. It's there's so many layers to it. So you're kind of acknowledging everything, like your entire soul's journey up to this point. And then we do exercises and different things where we're helping to release any blocks or anything that needs to kind of shift out or just realign. And then the third piece is connecting, and that's connecting with your actual soul baby. And it's also connecting with your higher self, to your guides, to all these other things that a lot of times people aren't even aware of, that they're connecting with and working with and have access to. So that's kind of the empowered conception. So it's kind of taking back the control of what's happening and less of the struggle.
I would think that you could have a practice alone just working with people who are writers, going, getting through writer's block,
Yeah,
which is the
and
same thing. It's conception.
right.
I
And
say every time I'm writing a book, it's like giving birth.
right. Yeah, exactly it. And that's why it's the same process no matter who I'm working with. I work with people who are just trying to heal from other things. So it's always the same. And that's what's so fascinating to me, is that we create everything in our womb. In my case, I happen to be connected with these quote unquote soul babies, but it's the same for all.
What's a soul baby?
It's really just the soul that's at this kind of moment in time that's coming to the earth. I talk about pre-birth to earth. So it's kind of the ones that have kind of the intention and focus, so their energy is coming through, and that's why women kind of all of a sudden have this like strong desire to have a baby or to be connected in that way. So it's when the soul is kind of at that time when they are looking to come back down to earth.
And what is the percentage of like people success rate you have?
About 85%. And that's women. There's women who are it's coming naturally and they're just naturally getting pregnant. I'm also working with women who are going through IVF, IUI, adoption, surrogacy. It's all the same because it's all connecting with that soul, and it doesn't matter. And that's a big piece of it, is helping women detach from the process and how the outcome will come about. So it doesn't matter what it is, because you're connecting with that soul regardless if it's coming through you biologically or not.
So even if someone's going to adopt.
Yes. Yeah, I worked with a client who she had a baby naturally, and then she was trying to have a second, and she knew she did not want to have it come through, biologically through her, just because of some health conditions that came about from the first one. And she was trying to work with a surrogate, and nothing was lining up. Nothing was working out. There was all these, bad things that came about through it. And we worked on some blocks that she was having personally, and then she found the right surrogate, and the process was completely smooth, and she has her baby now and everything. And again, it doesn't matter how it's coming about. When those blocks are there, they're going to block you regardless.
Yeah. I had infertility issues. My first child was conceived like that. The second one, my kids are 6.5 years apart. And I was so caught up in the process. And then I think finally when I said, you know what, God, just let it happen. Still didn't think I could conceive. And lo and behold, I was pregnant.
Right.
So, it's hard to get to that point where you can drop out of the control and say, this is in my control, but it's not in my control, because it really is a miracle, that how this whole thing happens. So
right.
What happens like with people who have lost babies? Do those soul babies come back, or do they just, what happens to those soul babies?
Yeah. And there's so many different ways that can go. But I think the important thing is with that is, there's so many women who go through loss and miscarriage, or even have gone through abortions, where the way society is, we don't really focus on that. So there's a whole healing process that really does need to take place, that it's not so natural for that to be given to a woman, especially with the miscarriages, especially the early on miscarriages, where, people are like, okay, well, keep trying, when you're going to try again. And it just becomes this instant thing that they're supposed to just get over. But, and a lot of times they don't realize it, but they have connected with a soul on some level. So there is a healing that needs to take place through that. And it doesn't have to be long and hard and anything like that. But again, just acknowledging that, it helps heal that, and then have whatever's going to happen next, whether that same soul is going to come back or if it's a different soul, it heals whatever that journey was for those souls. Because there's always this reason and this connection of why two souls are crossing paths. So, yes, it could be the same soul coming back. It could be a different soul, but there is a purpose why, even if it's for a very short moment, that those two souls came together. So that's part of.
what society doesn't realize, well, American society can't deal with death in any shape or form, especially
Right.
miscarriage, because it's like, oh, it's only a miscarriage. You didn't know the baby. It's not quite that, because there's so many hopes and dreams in that conception, in that pregnancy, for the family, for the woman, for even the father, and the soul that's coming through. Very often the soul changes its mind, doesn't want to do this, or there was a reason the woman had to go through this journey, or the husband. So I think you're spot on. I don't think people recognize this, at least in this country. I can't speak for other countries, but at least in this country. What I often find is, if I'm doing a reading with somebody, I feel what you call the soul babies around them that have not come through. And
Mhm.
they typically, have something very strong to say about why they didn't come through, or how they're still around. And, I mean, and even stillborns, it happens across the board. Do you feel those babies that have not come through when you're doing your work, who maybe have been lost, to a miscarriage, or a stillborn or something like that? Do you feel them around the woman that you're working on?
I do. I get, yeah, so I get physical sensations of where blocks might be. And a lot of times then I do get specific messages of why that's coming through. Um, it's interesting because there's so many different because there's so many different blocks that can come about, and a lot of it doesn't really make sense. Like, I can give you an example of one client who, what came through while I was working with her was, I actually got a vision of a very dimly lit dining room, but I had a very strong grandmother energy. And it was like, there was so much sadness and heaviness. Like, I could actually physically feel it in my heart, and I could feel heart palpitations, and it was like just really heavy. So, I let the client know what was coming through, and she said, well, I'm not sure why that would be connected, with my soul baby. But she explained to me that her grandmother now has dementia, and her bedroom is right outside the family dining room. So she kind of could picture like what was happening. So after we had our session, she went back and talked to her family about it. And it turns out that her grandmother, when she was born, her own mother died in childbirth. And her grandmother, to this day, always hears a baby crying, and she's always looking for this baby and trying to help this baby and stop the baby from crying. So there was this whole ancestral line of stuff that happened around childbirth, which was causing a block for my client. So in her, like, even just acknowledging that and finding out that story, it cleared a huge block for my client. And she got pregnant shortly after that. But it's just very interesting because it's all tied together. And it's all these little moments of unblocking and healing, and just kind of opening up these channels that kind of helps this process along.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful that you work with ancestral lines, because I think so often healers forget that it's not only in our DNA, but it's also in our energetic field. It's just there. The shamans and the indigenous people get that, but many healers, they forget about that. They forget about how it's imprinted on us. And so getting through that is it's very important, and it's very enlightening, because there's always other messages that come through with and learning about our ancestral line, because we tend to forget about that. And so I think when, like, you bring that up, it's also a story that the mother can tell this baby, about the ancestral line. So if somebody comes to you, what tools can you pass on for people maybe who are trying to conceive? Like, do you tell people kind of, what they can do around the conception to help them?
Yeah, and the tools I can give them, we can do a lot of work together, but on their own, they're very simple tools. My favorite one is just as a first step, especially when, obviously people are kind of on different paths and different beliefs and things like that, but especially the clients who don't even realize that they can connect with other souls and connect with their soul baby. I love to have them, as a first step, write a letter to their soul baby. It just like pen and paper, write it down,
Right.
say hello, open up. It literally opens up that channel. It's so instant. And you can write anything you want in that letter, you know, talk about what you're excited about, what their life will be like, what you're nervous about. It really doesn't matter. It's just the act of doing that. And that step alone opens up so much. And then they kind of look at me strange until like a few days later when they're texting me and they start telling me all the signs that have been coming in, and, you know, the messages they got, like from messages on the radio when they turned it on. And anyway, so that opens up a huge channel. And, you know, and the other tools are just really paying attention to their own energy. A big one is, especially if they're working with doctors or fertility doctors or things like this, you know, it drives me crazy with these labels that get put on women, you know, with, you know, after 6 months of trying, they get labeled as, you know, this, infertile or whatever terms they want to use, but just that alone causes blocks all around you. And so the steps they can take is really managing their energy and paying attention. Even if they just kind of like notice where their aura is and pulling that in close to them before they go into a doctor appointment. You know, like really like strengthening their solar plexus and just keeping their power really, really within themselves. Really simple steps like that are tools that they can use. My big thing, especially when it comes to the soul babies, they are constantly sending signs and messages. So it's really anything they can do: meditation, journaling, you know, journal and ask direct questions to the soul baby. Really basic stuff, but the more you do it, your channels just go wide open.
You know, and when they're doing those journalings, I think what helps whenever you're talking to anyone in the spirit world is to ask the question, write the question with your dominant hand, and put the pen in your least dominant hand, because your brain kind of does it. You don't have a lot of thinking involved in that. So spirit works better that way, because you become a clear channel. It's hard for people to do, but it's certainly something that can be mastered. But I also agree with you, like the claiming it. Like, you know, my husband will laugh at me. He's like, why do you say this if it hasn't happened yet? Because I believe it. I believe it. And the power of intention, you know, and saying it out loud says, I believe so much that this is going to happen, that it happens, you know? So, you know, not using the word I'm infertile, you know, like I never used that word until after my baby was born, you know? So, you know, don't use that word. Say, oh no, I'm going to have a baby. Yeah, I'm going to have a baby. Are you pregnant? No, but I will be soon. You know, and people may look at you like, oh, you're an idiot, because we all know you're having a problem. But it's saying, I so much believe in the power above to help me, and that I can manifest this in this wonderful way, because it's a good thing. You know, and I always told my kids, you know, you own your words, you know, so what you say out loud, you own. So be careful what you say. And I mean, I think we all struggle with that. We say things that we shouldn't say, we act impulsively, or, you know, our emotions come out. But to like be very conscious of that, I think is really important, because it's so, having gone through that process, I mean, every month I would cry when I found out I wasn't pregnant.
Well, that's a good point, and that's why I try to remind women that this is your conception journey. You're already on it. So you're already, you know, you haven't conceived, but you're on this conception journey. The timing, I know it's hard for women to accept when each, you know, that month they get their period. But I try to tell them, okay, take ownership of that. You know, thank your body and say, thank you for knowing how to operate so naturally like that. You know, like take every piece of it as part of the journey. Like you're still on this conception journey. This is part of it. You know, I had another client who, from the time I started working with her until she actually had her baby, was probably about a year. And in the beginning, you know, it was taking a while for her to conceive, but she took this journey and she turned it into something so incredibly magical. I mean, she wound up, as we were working, there was all this like childhood trauma that came up that she kind of forgot about. And so that all came up, and she really worked on healing all these different pieces. And then through that, she actually became a Reiki master, which was something that she never even thought about, kind of delving into that world. And so through her journey, she just took it into a whole different direction and added all these wonderful things to her life that never would have come about if she didn't kind of focus on this journey piece. And now she has her baby, and you know, and that's wonderful. But it became so much more than just, I'm trying, I want to be pregnant this month, done.
Yeah,
It
I
just,
think, everything happens for a reason.
yeah.
And there's a reason, whether it's just to appreciate the pregnancy more or, okay, why, you have to sit back and say, why is this happening? What am I supposed to learn from this? But that's just about, I feel, everything. So after these women become pregnant, do you still work with them?
Some of them I do. It just depends. Everybody's so different about how they decide to work with me. But yeah, but I work with them. We do Reiki, general energy healing. It just depends.
So you don't, but do you support them within their pregnancies?
Sometimes, again, it just depends. Yeah.
So do people have to come back repeated times? Or is it just like one time or two times and then they kind of move on?
It it depends. I mean, honestly, it's pretty quick. When I'm working with them, the information comes in very quickly about what the blocks are, and if it, a lot, if they shift, it happens very quickly. So a lot of times it happens after one session, and otherwise it's pretty quick.
I find this like fascinating. I truly know
And
nobody that does what you do.
I find
Nobody.
it fascinating too. Every single person I'm working with fascinates me.
It's just such a
So,
great job because you're bringing through life. Like I'm not saying anything. I mean, what I do can be very, it's painful, it's happy, it's joyful because the souls coming through are saying something that the person needs, but you're bringing through life. That is so wonderful. And behalf of all of these people that you've helped, truly thank you. Thank you. Because you're adding so much to this world that we live in, and helping. There's so many women who so much want a child and cannot conceive. It's
right,
rampant.
right.
A lot of it I think has to do with the stress of society, the stress that we put on ourselves, and the blockages from the past that we just can't get over. So I think it's wonderful that you're doing that.
Thank you.
There is a man standing behind you. Okay.
Okay.
Um, I feel like he's a grandfather. Um, he's singing, he's saying that he was born in the fall and that everybody recognizes his birthday. Do you have a grandfather who is either born or passed in the fall? He has a couple of daughters.
Yeah, it's probably my mother's father.
Okay. Is there a Christine in the family? Do you know? Because
No,
it feels like a Christine and a Maria. Do you know who
there's
Maria is?
Maria's my aunt, his daughter.
Okay.
I don't know who Christine is.
Okay. He's talking about a Christine. I don't know who Christine is. Do you know if your grandmother had a miscarriage?
She has.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's Christine. Okay. He
Okay.
named the baby Christine. He's with that baby. Okay. But he's with your aunt because I feel like your aunt is going through something. Whatever it is, he's holding her up. Okay. He's saying he knows he was much loved. Okay. He knows it. He knows that he is missed. Okay. He's very much around you. Okay.
Mm.
And he's clapping. So this is your mother's father.
Yeah.
He loves your father. Loves
Yeah.
your father. He's saying, didn't get him, didn't understand him, but I love him. He's a good, solid man, and that you don't have much to worry about right now. Who's Anna? Do you know who
Uh,
Anna is?
I have a friend, Anna.
What about on no, this is a relative. What about on your husband's side? There's an older woman named Anna.
There's an aunt Anna still on my mom's side.
On your mother's side. Is
My
she
my,
living?
my great aunt.
Okay, she passed?
Yes.
Yeah, she's with your grandfather.
Okay.
They're together. He's saying, she can be fun, but you have to cut through the layers to see that. Okay.
Okay.
But he's saying that that he's blessing you in everything that you're doing, and he'll help you write the book. Okay, because a book needs to be written. So tell me, if people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that for like a
They
session?
Yeah, they can go to my website. They can email me. My
What is the
website is
website?
life sketching. So
Okay.
it's lifesketching.com. And it's Mica@lifesketching.com is my email. So they
And
can
can
just
you do
reach
this
direct answer.
through Zoom or on the phone?
Yeah, I do Zoom. I'll do in person if they want or can. Either way.
Okay, because in this day and age, unfortunately, so much has to be done by Zoom or on the telephone.
Right.
So I tell people all the time, energy is energy, and you can tap into it, whether someone's sitting in front of you or, when I do readings for people, in Africa or Australia, it doesn't seem to matter. It's the same thing.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Mica.
Thank you for having me.
Continue all your good work.
I will. Thank you.
Thank you.